Welcome to Influential Entrepreneurs, bringing you interviews with elite business leaders and experts, sharing tips and strategies for elevating your business to the next level. Here's your host, Mike Saunders.
Well, hello and welcome to this episode of Influential Entrepreneurs. This is Mike Saunders with Marketing Huddle, and today we have with us Nathan Hirsch, who is the founder and CEO of FreeUp. Nathan, welcome to the program.
Mike, thanks for having me.
Hey, so let's just jump right into giving us a little bit of background on yourself. What's your business? What led you to the business? I love hearing entrepreneurial stories because so many times there's that recurring theme of either a pivot in someone's life, right? You know, I was doing this and I couldn't take it anymore, and so I started, or I noticed some issue that I couldn't get solved and I couldn't find it out there, so I started it myself. So what was your kind of pivotal moment in your entrepreneurial journey?
Sure. So I was a broke college student, around 20 years old. I needed extra beer money on the side, and I started buying and selling people's textbooks instead of selling them to the bookstore that was ripping people off. So I started doing that, and that led me to Amazon.com, because you don't sell books for very long without learning about Amazon. Mm-hmm. And at the time, Amazon was mostly books. They were just getting into other things such as toys and home products, if you can imagine that. And I was one of the first people to get on those listings and start selling other things. And I started buying from different deal sites, learning how to buy from vendors and manufacturers. And before I knew it, I was running this multi-million-dollar business out of my college dorm room, with really no idea what I was doing. Hiring my college friends, hiring Connor, who's actually my business partner still to this day. And along that process, I made some really great hires like Connor. And I also made some mistakes like any entrepreneur does hiring. And as I grew my business and I graduated and I decided to be an entrepreneur full time, I really realized how much of my time I was wasting on HR. I mean, even if I made a good hire, it was 10, 15 interviews and a lot of multiple rounds of interviews and going through resumes, and it was frustrating. And then you hire someone and they work for you for 4 months and they quit, and that's even more frustrating. It's a waste of money, and you start over. So, and a friend of mine told me about Upwork, which was Odesk at the time, about hiring non-U.S. workers. So I had this team of both full-time employees, contractors, U.S., non-U.S., and it was very optimized, but I was still spending a lot of time. So I had the idea of creating a new marketplace, one that was more hands-on, one that helps you pre-vet workers, that protects you from turnover, and that's really how I got into FreeUp.
So it's interesting that you could have gone a different direction and said, look at all this money I'm making on Amazon, I'm going to teach people how to do the same thing. Yes.
So one of my just business philosophies from the beginning, because I've seen this happen to so many people, is they get that one revenue stream and they just do that and that and that. And then something changes in the industry. Amazon decides to shut you down, whatever it is, depending on what business you're running, and you're just hung out to dry and all your hard work goes out the window. And I never wanted to be like that. I didn't want to sell on Amazon for 20 years and wake up one day without a company from nothing, even if I did everything correctly. So I always wanted to diversify. On a personal level, just making money for yourself selling products got a little bit old after 5, 6, 7 years of doing it. And FreeUp is an opportunity for me to help other business owners pursue their dreams, and also to find jobs for very skilled working people who need that to provide for their family. So it's a lot more rewarding to help a lot of people as a whole rather than just your internal company.
Yeah, you know, that's really insightful, and you would think that that kind of response would be from someone with, 40 years in the industry, and I learned this through the School of Hard Knocks, but you seem to have gravitated to that from day one, which is, man, if more than X percent of my income comes from one stream, that might be not a good stream to focus everything on, because like you said, what if it goes away? And, same kind of a concept, there's a lot of people out there that just, and literally this exists. I don't have a website because I rely on my Facebook page. That is so wrong and so scary because Facebook can shut your page down. Facebook can change their algorithms, all of the things that we already know about anything online. So yeah, having the control, and if you visually, if I think about, this Amazon business you had and what was fueling that, what helped you scale that up, which was your workers and your outsourcers. Well, that's the engine, and you can replace that Amazon, nugget with something else and have those workers now working on the next thing or two or three things. So let's focus now on when you started that. You already mentioned that you made quite a few hiring mistakes, and now that's what you teach other business owners, how to avoid. But even before that step, what would you advise a small business owner, entrepreneur, solopreneur? Here's something in your daily life that should be a red flag that would make you go, you need to have some outsourced help that could help free you up to do more of the work that you're best at.
Sure, and it doesn't necessarily have to be outsourced. I'd like to focus on remote in general because, you can hire U.S. people, non-U.S. people, anything to free up your time. As a business owner, you should be spending the majority of your time on sales and marketing. If you're not doing that, you're really just wasting an opportunity because you can hire people to do your emails and any data entry work and bookkeeping. No one else is going to drive your business the way that you want to in the direction that you possibly can. So to me, it's really important that my clients spend their time on expansion and on diversifying their revenue streams and on preventative maintenance to make sure that their business is protected rather than those day-to-day operations. And I find too many people that are working 60, 70, 80 hours a week just doing the same task over and over again where, yeah, you won't make as much money, but your time will be up front, but your time will be freed up, and that'll lead to way more opportunity down the line.
Yeah, that's a really neat concept. It's kind of like you've probably heard this research before where, you get the nose to the grindstone and you're just getting her done, and then you take a long weekend and you go up to the mountains and have a good time, and all of a sudden in the middle of your weekend you get some epiphanies, you get some great business ideas, you get some things because in reality your mind has kind of settled down and you're kind of receptive to letting all of those subconscious thoughts kind of get settled in, and now all of a sudden you're like, that's a good idea, I'm going to write that down for next week. And if you run yourself in overdrive too much, now those things get stifled. So how, as a business owner or entrepreneur, can you free up that time so that you can know that some of these, tasks that, frankly, you shouldn't be doing, right, can be done? And I've heard it said, what's your hourly rate? So if you right now wrote down, as a business owner listening to this, what did you make last year and how many average hours? Be honest, because a lot of entrepreneurs would say, I work 45 hours a week, and in reality it's, 400 hours a week. But if you put down your actual hours and figured out a pretty good hourly rate for yourself, what you brought in, should you really be doing data entry? Should you really be doing, checking up on this or that kind of function? And when you can easily get some good workers, onshore, offshore, whatever the case is, to be doing that for you, and then you're focused on the highest and best use of your time.
I totally agree. And that's really step one when I meet with a new client, is convincing them that their time is valuable, that they should be valuing it more, and that any time that's wasted is really money down the drain, and they can better use their resources. Like you said, any business owner, there's no way to get around it. You're going to work a lot of hours. It just depends on, especially during the startup phase, but it just depends on where you're focusing those hours. Are those hours improving the company in any way? Are they steps to free up your time, to get you your weekends back, to get the business into a good, stable place? Or are you just kind of repeating the motions every day to keep the business just running without actually pushing forward?
Yeah, that's a huge realization, because it's kind of like ready, fire, aim. You can say, I'm going to hire a worker and do some things, but is it the right things? And then how about this, like what you just mentioned? If you then have that segment of your, task list done, are you then yourself, as the leader, entrepreneur, CEO, are you then applying that freed up time the right way so that it then propels you further? Or does that free up your time so you can play video games, per se? So I think that that's part of then the strategy. So let's say that an entrepreneur, makes the decision, I tell people to do this a lot, and it sounds like a really laborious task, but it's so important. If you sat down to your work day, and you had a piece of paper or a little notepad on your computer, and every 15 minutes to 30 minutes you put down what you did during that time block. If you did that all throughout your workday for a week, or maybe two, and then you look back at that during a Saturday, Sunday reflection time and said, you know what? Wow, this one here was a great strategic alliance meeting, and this one here was a meeting with a vendor. That's good, but wow, I was doing XYZ PDQ that, So I think that a lot of times we think we're doing really relevant tasks, but we're not. So once you zero in on that, now let's bring in some outside help. And to your point, you're saying maybe for starters, it's not the right choice to go out and interview and hire full-time workers sitting in your office because maybe you don't have an office. So maybe this outsourced worker, remote virtual worker that you're providing is the decision. So now the next step is they contact you and you start working with them to help facilitate that. What does that look like?
Sure. So the second side of freeing up your time is figuring out what you're good at. What are your strengths and what are your weaknesses? And also, what do you enjoy doing? That's a smaller part of it, but it is a big part, because if you own a bakery and you really enjoy baking, or you really enjoy doing the books, or whatever side of it is, you want to be spending a lot of your time doing that as well. I'll give you an example, my business partner and I. So I'm very good on the sales and customer service side and the process side. That's what I'm good at. He's very good at the content. He's an excellent writer, the marketing, the building the website, and we complement each other very well. And when we hire people for our internal team, we're looking to add people that have a skill that we can't bring to the table. Because, yes, I could go spend the next 6 months learning how to do Google PPC at a very high level, but that's not the best use of my time. It's much better to talk to new clients, improve the processes, and hire someone who already has 5-10 years of experience doing that to come in and take over that team. So we use that philosophy to help our clients figuring out what they're good at. If they're really good at finding profitable products, let them do that and get a customer care person to come in and handle their emails, or let them get an eBay expert to help them get on eBay if they only sell on Amazon. We even work with like doctors who don't know anything about social media. You bring someone in, you get them to build the page and handle all of that, because the doctor should really focus on being a doctor. So that whole mindset of focusing on what you're good at and being honest with yourself of what you're bad at, or what your weaknesses are, and bringing people onto your team that are exact opposites of you.
Yeah, that's really huge. So am I understanding you correctly that while you teach and train and help facilitate finding and hiring remote workers, that's not your only task? You also go deeper in, well, what are you really good at? And if we freed up this time, what then could you be doing? And what are some, ancillary services and products that can help increase revenue? So in other words, it's kind of like, for a dating site. We don't just connect you with a date. We make sure that you know how to buy roses and open the car door.
Exactly. And a lot of people, when they think remote VA, they think of a data entry assistant that'll just do what they're told, whereas we do it at a very different level. We have VAs, both U.S. and non-U.S., for every position from $5 to $50 an hour to help you with all your needs, whether they're top-level consulting needs, whether they're mid-level, more specialized people, or lower-level people that might have 5 years of customer service experience, but they need to learn how you do customer service, and then they'll repeat the motions over and over again so you don't have to. So we kind of offer that wide range of people at your disposal with no hiring time, plus that no turnover guarantee to help really free up your time.
Yeah, I think that's a really big aha, because I think if people hear, free up and mistakes in outsourcing, they think that you're just going to pair them up with someone, and then it's this big question mark of how do I hire, how do I interview, what if this and what if that. But you kind of bring a full, holistic approach, which I really like that idea, because you're thinking as you were when you were starting off. What would this person need to do to have success? And it's not just handing them a list of potential assistants that they can interview. It's teaching them what to do with that. So I really like that approach. So then what would you say is maybe a best practice, or maybe a mistake that a business owner makes when they're then taking the next step in bringing some of that outsourced and virtual workers into their organization?
Sure. So best practices is to know what you want and be able to clearly lay out your expectations. So, for example, we have a very good company culture between Connor and I that we build and we preach to all of our contractors. But my company culture is going to be different than yours. So I only want to hire people that fit my company culture. And if you're more corporate, you only want to hire people that fit yours. And that goes on a broader level from expectations to goals to pet peeves. So make sure you're able to lay all that out. Make sure you're recruiting similar-minded people that you can work with in terms of values, but also make sure that it's clear that when they're hired, you can hand them a piece of paper being like, hey, here's everything about the company. This is how we run. This is who you go to for this. These are the key players. These are our goals. This is what you do. This is what you don't do. And it's just very clear from the beginning, so there's no communication errors, because that's what stalls businesses. That's what leads to bad hires. It's not necessarily someone's good or bad at a particular skill. For the most part, if someone has years of experience, they're going to be somewhat good at it, hopefully better. But if that communication isn't there, it's never going to end well. And you really have to set the standards from the beginning and recruit based on not only talent but communication.
Yeah, that's a big piece, and I do think that sounds easier than it is, because it makes sense to nod your head and say, yep, I agree with that, but then actually doing it kind of takes a little bit of thought, right?
Absolutely. And I mean, that's why our interview process is so vigorous. Yes, we test them for their skill and their experience and their track record of success, but we also have 15 pages of communication guidelines, because I was a client once. I still am a client. I hire a lot, and I talk to clients all day. I know what they like. I know what they don't like. I know how to communicate at a high level. So we want to preach this, and we're more than happy to teach people how to do it if they follow our policies. But we have very high expectations, and we don't care how well you complete a project. If our client is chasing you down or that we have any communication issues, you're not going to stay in our network very long. So we're all about communication.
Yeah, that's a really, really big piece. So, hey, let's kind of wrap up and land the plane with what would you recommend would be the first step or actually, let me phrase it this way. If someone is an entrepreneur, CEO, business owner, thinking, man, my workday, I can't even, finish the workday without having 10 million things left over, what would be a red flag or an opportunity that they should be watching for to say, okay, this segment of my day, I could probably get someone to do it to free me up? What would be one thing or two things they can watch out for? And then what's the best way that they could communicate and connect with you?
Yeah, so the best thing to do is to make a list of everything that you do on a day-to-day or week-to-week basis and prioritize it in terms of easy to hard, and start chipping away at the bottom of the list and find ways to take that stuff off your plate. Because if you're going to be the CEO or the founder or the COO or whatever it is, you need to be focused on the high-end tasks and not the lower end. And the easiest way to free up your time is to get that stuff off your plate. And then you can always add talented people at the top to take even more. But step one is to get rid of the easiest. To contact me is very easy. You can go to freeup.com. You can book a meeting with me right on the website. We're also on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and all that. On top of that, you can check out our Free Up blog. We're always talking about how to build a good company culture, manage workers, hire effectively, good hiring practices. We have an online hiring mastermind group where we post a lot of tips in, and we're really there to help you from start to finish while also saving you time along the hiring process.
Excellent. Well, listen, I really enjoyed learning about your company today, Nathan. Thank you for taking time to stop by.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
You've been listening to Influential Entrepreneurs with Mike Saunders. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.influentialentrepreneursradio.com.